ENAUTO Section 9 Summary Challenge, Automating Operations using Cisco DNA Center. Question 1. Which option is a use case that Cisco DNA Assurance solves? All right, data collection, ingestion, correlation, analysis, visualization, and action. Energetically monetize visionary relationships. I don't know what this is. Dramatically actualize visionary results and conveniently parallel task quality meta services. So these three options, I don't know, they may come from something real, but they sound like complete gibberish to me. Like intentional, over exaggerated marketing BS, something like that. So definitely DNA assurance is data collection, ingestion of this data, then this data get kind of uh, correlated, so kind of put together and analyzed, and then visualized, and then possibly some actions are being taken based on the results of this analysis visualization. What is one step in configuring webhooks for Cisco DNA Center events? All right. Enable and configure network events for REST endpoints bundle. For REST endpoints bundle, that may be it. Seamlessly disseminate go forward e-commerce. Again, the same thing as in the first question. Conveniently innovate world-class mindshare. This looks like generated. Enable Cisco DNA Center path trace. So path trace is, I don't think it needs to be enabled, right? It's just there as a service, as an operational service, as well as an operational API endpoint. And it can be just initiated by a request from one point in the network to another. Yeah, and then the result of it can be read and analyzed, and yeah, and then following the further assurance workflow, action may be taken based on this path trace. So anyway, it's enable and configure network events for REST endpoints bundle. It was not really covered very well in the lab. They didn't give us any write access. Yeah, so anyway, that should be the answer. Which option is an example of an alerting mechanism? syslog, SNMP get, ping, or synergetically enhance again long-term high-impact conversions. This is just a filler option, I guess. Okay, so alerting. There are two ways, right? So there is kind of, I forgot what it's called. Ping? No, it's requesting information, right? And there is an alerting mechanism. Yeah, so it's when you kind of get information, you ask for information. Polling, that's probably called polling, right? So there is a polling way and there is alerting way. Ping is kind of a polling tool because you take an action to get some understanding, some information from the network. Similar with SNMP get, you make an action first and then you get your information. And syslog, in syslog, the action is actually kind of triggered by the network and you get notified or alerted about something has happened. Some event has been happening. So syslog is the correct answer here. What is the correct path to access the intent API to get overall client health? All right, so that must start with DNA and then intent. This is the base path for all API calls, and then API v1, and then that must be client health, right? So this is the endpoint. For which workflow does Cisco DNA Center Assurance provide actionable insights? Which workflow? So overall, there are four well, there are more, right? But four larger workflows, I guess, like design, design, provision, then assurance, right? Um, yeah, I think I forgot policy. So on a larger extent, it's design, then policy, define policies, then you provision these policies on the devices, on the hardware and software, and then assurance. Specifically for within assurance domain, they are own assurance workflow. So um, anyway, actionable insights. What does it mean? What does that mean? Yeah, it's kind of more or less obvious from the options here, because these three things, they don't make any sense at all. They are not workflows, right? Data center is not a workflow, unified communication is not a workflow, and cell phones aren't a workflow, of course. So then the workflow name should be network, client, and application. Yeah, and although this option makes sense just because others are complete nonsense, it also makes sense kind of by itself, because actionable insights, it's basically when there is an issue with the network, the DNA Center will provide some recommendations, which are called here as actionable insights. And these are provided for kind of specific things in the network, specific entities, and they are network itself, like network devices, for example, clients, there are endpoints, and applications which are running in the network. Yeah, makes sense. For what is the name of the application that receives a webhook? Okay, so receives a webhook. I totally understand how webhooks work. Webhook is a trigger which fires, and it triggers the service, API service, to send the notification to the consumer of the API that something has happened, right? So that should be consumer. I could also say client. Actually, kind of client receives it from the server, but that's pretty much it. So it's not provider, neither of these. And finally, what is the correct path to access the intent API to initiate a new path trace? So it should be, again, DNA intent API v1. Okay, so all four are correct until here. And then it's flow analysis. Just one thing to memorize. It's called flow analysis, and when you do a little bit of labbing with it, it kind of memorizes pretty well. It's not flow trace, it's not even path trace, although the service is called path trace, and not this one. Yeah, so that should be it.